Hi, everybody. We're live. I'm Debbie Schwartz. I'm the founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 group. I am here tonight with Lynnette Khalfani-Cox. Hey, Lynette.
Howdy. Hey, everybody.
So great to have you here. So I actually give people just like a few minutes to just kind of get on because they're usually notified by Facebook that we're live, and maybe they get a cup of tea or something, to come sit down and watch. So
got my water ready.
Right. I got my tea. So maybe some of you have a glass of wine. That's fine. So
that's next for me.
Right. So as you come on, I love to hear where you're from. Tell us how many kids you have, what age your kids are, if they're in high school, in college, just to tell us a little bit about yourself. I am in Philadelphia. Lynette just moved. She's I actually didn't realize where in Texas. I know you're in Texas, but I'm not even sure where.
Yeah, I'm in the northwest suburbs of Houston.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I just moved from New Jersey, like I said, about three and a half months ago. Loving it. You don't have to worry about the snow or the ice or the cold anymore.
I know, that's nice. Although it's nice fall weather here, but it will definitely get into that yucky winter weather soon.
Yeah.
So I see people are watching, so just say hello. We'd love to know more about you. Type something in the comments just to know that you can hear us. I know you can see us, just to say hello. And we're gonna get started. As a lot of people saw, I posted that tonight's topic is about, here's Michelle from New Jersey. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
Lynette, first of all, Lynette has a ton of experience about personal finance because she's a personal finance expert. You've been in the field for, if you want to tell us how many years, or if not, we could just say many years.
Call me a veteran.
Okay, that's a good way. She's a veteran.
A lot of seniority and tenure. 20 plus years. It's good.
And Lynette did some really interesting things with her kids and paying for college and real estate. And she just knows a lot about issues related to paying for college in general. So there was an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago, right, from Business Insider about what exactly you did, which you'll tell us. And I think it just blew up. People were just sharing it left or right. They're like, look at this, because the topic was on how you were able to get your kids in-state tuition, which is something that people ask and talk about a lot. Right. So we are going to hear the details about it. So I kind of jumped in, but let me give a little background about Lynette, and then Lynette, maybe you can tell us more about yourself, and then we'll get into some of the questions. So as I mentioned, Lynette is a veteran personal finance expert. She is the CEO of her own company called The Money Coach, and it's a financial education company. You've written 15 books. That's amazing. Wow. And her New York Times bestseller is called Zero Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom. And we were talking about that earlier. Yeah. That's just continues to constantly, be a bestseller because it always helps people. People are always out there needing that help. And that book is valuable information. And you've appeared on 100 different TV shows, including Oprah, The Today Show, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz. So you've been all over the place. Anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
Well, I think the most important thing is I'm a mom of 3. Yes. And, like a lot of your audience, navigating the college planning and college financing process. I'm happily married to my little sweetie, Earl Cox. So our youngest is 13. She's an 8th grader. But our 2 older kids, like you mentioned, have already gone off to college. One just graduated last year. So she's 22 years old. She went to University of Texas at Austin. So hook 'em horns. Which way is it? That way. Yeah.
Right.
And then my son is 19. I got to go like this for him. Wolfpack. So he's like, one is like this and one is like this.
Oh,
he's in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a sophomore this year at North Carolina State University. And so, yeah, I'm going to have college on the brain for, at least 5 more years when Alexis goes off to college, and then 4 years of undergrad, and who knows what she'll do after that. So probably the next decade or so, I'll be,
I know. That's what we were talking about. When you have multiple kids, this like process just drags on, and
yes,
you might feel a tiny bit more comfortable the second or third time you go through it. You can't kind of rest on your laurels because things are always changing.
Totally changes. I mean, the difference between my daughter and my son going off to college was a 3-year gap, but a lot of stuff changed in between then. But one thing didn't change, which was the strategy that our family opted to take advantage of in terms of getting in-state tuition, because we knew that our kids had both chosen public schools. So I definitely want to share this with your audience, because I really do think it's a fabulous strategy that more people should give a go and should try, if all the sort of, right conditions are ripe for them, and if it kind of makes sense for them.
Yeah.
So let me first start by saying, especially since we have time, I can like tell the full story. And I was so happy with the Business Insider article, because it really did share like, the benefits of buying a property and getting in-state tuition as opposed to out-of-state tuition. But it captured how it helps a student and a family, frankly, in a lot of other ways too. So our goal was sort of 3- or 4-fold for our family. Yes, we wanted to save on out-of-state tuition, because as your audience probably knows, you're typically going to pay like 2, maybe 3 or 3.5 times the rate of tuition if you're an out-of-state student than an in-state resident would pay. So yes, we definitely wanted to save. But we also wanted to start our kids on the path towards wealth building and home ownership, which was something that I didn't get to do my entire life until I was in my 20s. I grew up in Los Angeles. My parents were, poor to working class.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't really afford to not only buy a home, but couldn't afford to send their kids to college, but they insisted that all of us go to college. So my parents had 5 daughters. And then my parents divorced when I was about 7 years old. My dad later remarried. He had another daughter, my sister Tiffany, and we all went to college.
Wow.
3 of us went to graduate school and got master's degree as well. And our parents were pretty much always like, which college will you be attending? It was never really optional. It wasn't like, they really pushed us. Both of them did. They pushed us to go to pursue higher education. But long story short, when I went to UC Irvine in Orange County, California for undergrad, I got my bachelor's degree in English. And then I went to USC, University of Southern California in Los Angeles, right after that. And I got my master's degree in journalism, thus being able to write 15 books.
Right.
But when I got out of grad school, I had $40,000 in student loan debt. And it took me over 15 years to pay it off. And part of that was like, woo, that was a pain. That was awful. And I really didn't want my kids to have that experience.
Sure.
Have to have that kind of weight on their backs. It's almost like having a little mini mortgage on your back when you're coming out of school and you're just, getting your first job. Debt is just an anchor and a kind of a weight around you. So I already knew I really didn't want that.
And even though you were able to pay it off within, you probably postponed things that you would have done earlier.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of being in debt in general, and you mentioned my book, Zero Debt, which talks about, getting rid of credit card debt. But part of being in debt in general is that it saps your options and your life choices.
Right.
Your ability to get ahead. You can't save as much. You can't invest as much. You can't really kind of live the life that you want, at least having the same level of freedom and choices. So again, I didn't want my kids to be restricted in that way. So my husband, Earl, and I have made a commitment to all 3 of our kids. And essentially, we've told them, your job is to be a good person and to be a good student first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, listen, we'll cover you if you do the right things. Like, we want you to really pursue higher education aggressively, do your very best. And if you, go to college, put your best foot forward, etc., we'll make sure that you won't have to pay student loans when you get out of college. So we'll cover you. We'll make sure that we buy you your first house, and we'll get you your first car as well.
Wow.
So we wanted to kind of accelerate them, help them launch, right? Help them to not come back home too, honestly. Get your own place. You don't have to, no boomerang kids.
I'm just curious, like, when did you start communicating that to them?
So for my kids' entire lives, really, certainly for Aziza and Jakata, the older two, probably from when they were, 6, 7, 8 and on, I really started emphasizing a lot of money talks and having a lot of money conversations with them. I always talk to them about college. I didn't talk to them about, you won't have student loan debt, I'm going to buy you a house.
Right.
That came literally first when Aziza was in college, when she was already a student in college, and when Jakata was in high school. So, but now Alexis, who's in middle school, right, totally knows the plan and is expecting, okay, I know I get a house too, right? So now fast forward, just because, again, I like to be candid and to explain, because sometimes people, you kind of stumble into a strategy. And honestly, that's really what happened to us. So my daughter Aziza was a really phenomenal student. She was a standout student. She had a 2230 SAT score. She was a National Merit Scholar. When, she took the PSAT, she did phenomenally well. She was, of course, an A student. She speaks French. She was the president of the French club, and she started a multicultural club on campus, and she did a ridiculous amount of community service and blah, 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 blah. So, package-wise, she was kind of one of those kids, right?
Right.
And so she got accepted to 7 great schools, and she had her, phenomenal scholarship offers. She won out of all the 7 schools and third party or outside scholarships. She won over $750,000 in scholarships. Okay.
Wow.
She won like 50-something thousand from NYU. From my alma mater, USC, she won the presidential award. And ultimately she wound up going to UT Austin. And at the time, and this was 2015, she got a $10,000 scholarship from the Business Honors Program, which is where she was accepted into the Business Honors Program. She was a Jefferson Scholar there, also at UT Austin. And so not only did they give her $10,000 a year, they gave her a magical thing called an out-of-state tuition waiver.
Wow.
So essentially, the head of the department called her up when she was in the process of making her decision. And she said, Aziza, and they had flown her out there, by the way. She had gotten a fly-in visit. I don't know if your audience knows about fly-ins.
Yep.
Kind of an all-expense paid trip to go visit the college of your choice. So they had flown her out there. They really wanted her to come to UT Austin. So the woman who was the head of the department said, listen, I was able to get 1 out-of-state tuition waiver for the entire department. And if you agree to come to UT Austin, that waiver will be for you. So we were like, she sealed the deal here.
Yeah.
So because at the time it was about $52,000 all in, tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies for an out-of-state student. But with all the scholarship money they gave her and everything that they did, Debbie, her first year, really, we only had to come out of pocket about $5,000.
That's amazing. But I wanted to emphasize one thing, because we talk about this a lot and you're kind of naturally describing it. Just from everything you said, your daughter was, at the top of, she was a great student, and it sounds like her scores, her academic profile was even at the top for what UT Austin wanted. So that was another reason why, she got these phenomenal offers, which, we try and tell people, wherever you are, wherever your child is academically, that's okay. You can find a school where they'll be in the top 25%. So
Exactly. And she was like in the top, 5 to 10% of their, yeah. So they gave her this great award package. And my daughter leaves Mountainside, New Jersey, which is the small little town, population 7,500 that we lived in New Jersey. And she goes off to Texas. She's on her own for the first time. She's going from the Northeast to the South. And, now all of a sudden she's on this 50,000 student campus.
Yeah, it's big.
On her own for the first time. And honestly, she just had a horrible first semester. She just did so poorly that I was like looking at the grades, like, who is this child? This is not my child that I've known, for her entire life getting A's, And so her first semester was very rough, and she was on academic probation.
Wow.
Yeah. So that tells you how bad it was.
Uh-huh.
So she was on academic probation. We basically created a plan for her. We were like, okay, you got to pull this together, honey. I want you to see tutors. I want you to, be in there with your professors at office hours. I want to make sure you're on schedule. And also, my daughter had suffered in her senior year of high school. This is after she had gotten, accepted and everything. Her second half, she suffered sudden hearing loss in her right ear.
Wow.
And I was saying to her when we went and, looked at the campus and everything, I was like, Aziza, this is a big campus. And I see 400 kids are going to be in this, auditorium, in this classroom. And I said, do you think you should go to the department for, services for students who have special needs or having, and she was like, no, I can hear out of this one. I'm good. And I was like, well, do you need a note taker or somebody to make sure, and she was, cause she's a trooper, and, but all of those things, adjustments, being on her own the first time, independence, time management, being
to the best of kids. It just
totally the best of kids. So one of the things that I found out though is that, well, before I tell you this, let me just kind of tell you what happened, because it's going to lead to the property story and everything. So she had a bad first semester. We said, you got to pull it together. She did. She bounced back. Her second semester, she was just fine. It was like the old Aziza that we, knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so, however, at the end of her first year overall, her requirement was for her to have a 3.5 GPA. And she did not overall have a 3.5 at the end of her first year because of the first semester that was, poor grades. So as a result of that, she lost her scholarships, lost her $10,000 a year BHP scholarship, and she lost her out-of-state tuition waiver.
Wow.
So needless to say, big change for sophomore year. So in a nutshell, I was not only devastated for her because I felt like her confidence was a little shaken. I felt like she was, at least after the first semester, she was, feeling bad and guilty and everything, and I just said, you go back there and you fight. You show, I said, not to me, not to your father. I said, you go prove it to yourself that you belong and that you can do this, because I know you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of built her up and gave her the pep talk, and, and of course she did. Next semester, she's on the dean's list. She's on, she came home with straight A's, and, her sophomore year, she, continued to do so well. And as a matter of fact, she graduated in 3.5 years. She graduated one semester early. So she actually got out in December of 2018. But in the course of me trying to figure out, I felt honestly almost like a failure as a mom. I'm going to be honest. I felt like, how could this have happened to my child who I've invested so much time and energy and resources? And there was no question that she could academically do the work. So we knew it wasn't really just it wasn't a question of academics. But I was just thinking, how could this happen? She's not a child who was an at-risk student in any way. But I did feel like she kind of fell through the cracks when so many things started going wrong, and she never reached out for help.
Right.
So I said, how come you didn't ask?
Yeah.
And she literally said, I didn't know who to ask for. I didn't know, because she's never really had to ask for help.
Right.
So in the course of me researching kind of what went wrong and how could this happen to even a top student, I discovered two really important things. One is that the typical high school student, the high school senior who goes off to college in their freshman year, suffers a 0.5 drop in their GPA. So the student who had a 3.95, for example, is statistically going to likely wind up with a 3.45 in their freshman year of college. So then it got me thinking, I'm sure some of these schools know this when they're giving out those scholarships and when they're, setting a pretty high bar, not impossible, but when they told us, oh, she has to have a 3.5 GPA, I was like, not a problem for her. That, I thought it'd be a cakewalk for her, honestly.
Right.
So, so I found out that it's actually very common for students to struggle either their first year, their first semester, and for the grades, even for really good students, just to have challenges, but we have to support them and, give them the resources they need, show them how to ask for help, etc. And, help them if they need to get back on track.
Right.
So that was one. And the second thing was, because I was looking at a huge bill for
right.
the sophomore year, I started thinking, of course, as a money expert, how can I lower the costs?
Right.
And the biggest cost was tuition. It was
Room and board.
3 times as much.
Yeah, it has skyrocketed, Yeah, I mean, tuition has gone up, but I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I bet you if we can't compare just tuition increases versus room and board, that would be much higher than, and together they're crazy.
Yes. So at UT Austin, it was about a 3 times difference, roughly $10,000 for in-state tuition and $30,000+ for out-of-state tuition. So, big difference there. And by the way, it's the same for my son this year as a sophomore in Raleigh at North Carolina State University. In-state tuition is about $9,500 or $9,800, somewhere in there, 9,000 something. And then it's 29,000 and change for out-of-state tuition.
Mm-hmm.
So in the course of me trying to see how can I lower expenses, because we're about to have to come out of pocket now because she lost these scholarships, I literally, read everything I could online on the school's websites. And then I came across some information that talked about establishing residency and in-state residency. Now, this is not just for UT Austin. This was for Texas, all public colleges in Texas. They essentially go by the same rules. However, let me be clear that different schools might interpret the rules differently, and obviously various states have their own separate, unique kind of patchwork of different rules and regulations that govern and dictate who gets in-state tuition or in-state status as a student. So, but I started looking into in-state residency for her as a student at UT Austin. And I saw several options. One of them was a student who gets married to somebody who's a resident there. And I was like, that ain't gonna happen, no. Although, surprise, surprise, my daughter is engaged to someone she met at UT Austin.
Well, congratulations, but I'm glad it happened that way instead of.
And in January of 2020, she's getting married.
Wow, congratulations.
But obviously, at the time, I was like, no prospects, and there's nothing, no, that's not going to happen. Even as parents, there was an option for if our family literally had moved, or if we were business owners and started a company in Texas. And again, because I am a business owner and have been since 2003, I was thinking like, let me see, is this really, might I consider this? I was not ready to move from the state of New Jersey at the time. Again, my son wasn't even in college yet, et cetera, hadn't graduated from high school. So I was like, that's way too premature for me. I'm not doing all of that. But property ownership and residency was another way. And I'll tell your audience too, one tip that can help you if you want to think about this as a strategy. You might want to connect with a realtor in the city or town that you're thinking about if your child is right on the cusp of going to school in a location that you know of. A realtor who is actually familiar with this process and of how it is that parents buy typically condos or townhouses for their kids to establish residency. In our case, I had received a postcard from a real estate agent in Austin during Aziza's freshman year, during her first semester. And the postcard basically said, I see you are in New Jersey, or your family is out of state. Contact us. We can tell you about how to get in-state residency for your child. And at the time, I remember thinking like, oh, okay, I guess they must be talking about me coming to live there and
Right.
in Texas and buying a property. Obviously, since it's a real estate agent, it didn't really register with me at the time that no, it would be her ownership of the property.
Well, that's what's so interesting about this, because I've really, we're going to hear more, but I've never really heard this version of it. I've kind of heard parents and financial, advisors talk about if you have the ability to potentially, the parents buy a property in the college town and they use that instead of when they can for room and board, and then they rent it out, but not necessarily to establish residency. So anyhow, I continue, but that's what's so interesting about your story.
Yeah. So this real estate agent, I said, oh, that was interesting. And because I do happen to have an interest in real estate in general. I just took his little postcard and just kind of filed it to the side. And I was like, I didn't have any need for it. I was like, whatever, I just put it to the side. But later, after the whole grade slip up happened and everything, I was like, where was that guy's card? Where is that postcard? And I did. I called him and I reached out to him. And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. I help families to establish tuition, to establish in-state residency. He said, but let me tell you kind of the lay of the land here in Texas and what's required. And literally everything he told me was 100% true. He was like kind of like my Sherpa, helping to guide me through it. And he told me several things. One is that it only works if your student has a bona fide intent to stay in that town or that city, in that state, ultimately, to live there. And I knew that for Aziza, after her first semester, and like I said, she had done poorly, her father, my ex-husband, who is a PhD, who was a professor at a college in New Jersey, and my husband Earl, my second and last and love of my life husband, but my daughter's biological father, when she had that poor first semester, honestly, he was like, oh, well, I guess she has to come back to New Jersey. And I was like, absolutely not. And so even after the first semester, when she was on probation, there was a risk there. She was like, oh, Ma, I really love it here. I want to stay. I love Austin. I want to stay here. And she 5 weeks into her being in Austin, she was like, she loved it so much. And I knew she really wanted to stay there. Mm-hmm. She had found a church there. She had connected with friends. She was loving her classes actually in the department. She later became a TA, she was kind of establishing roots and right. Just, kind of settling in. She definitely did not want to come back to New Jersey ever. So she saw herself going away and creating a new life for herself in Texas. And again, indeed, that's literally exactly what she's done. So Mark Colby, who's the real estate agent who explained all this to me, he said, you have to have a bona fide intent. And she has to actually meet domicile or residency requirements. She has to live, she has to own, as in she's on the deed for the property, and she has to personally live in that same property for 1 year to establish residency. And during that year, you have to do some things to demonstrate effectively your intent. And that you really are legitimately, you're not just coming there just for school, for college, and that, you might get up and leave or transfer, or even after graduation, you might go back to New Jersey or whatever. Right. So all of the sort of micro steps along the way are things like registering to vote there, getting your driver's license in the state. Right. Again, obviously owning the property and being on the deed itself there. It could be something as like getting a library card, having your church there, just, again, settling into the community and establishing bona fide roots and activities that help to demonstrate intent. Right. So she did all those things. And again, obviously, like I said, she's still living there. So we bought after her freshman year, she lost her scholarship. And then right before her sophomore year, we purchased her a condo. Here's the math. The condo was $210,000. We put a 10% down payment, so $21,000.
Yeah.
We paid about $4,000 in closing costs. So all in, we paid about $25,000.
Right.
Mind you, remember the difference in the tuition was $20-something thousand, right?
Right.
We also had to pay for her tuition, me and my ex-husband, you know,
For that.
and get the reimbursements on the back end, but that's another story.
Okay.
But in essence, you know, some people were like, "Are you sure about this, Lynette?" And my husband Earl and I basically said, "Yeah, we're going to double down on Aziza. We're going to invest in her, so to speak, to the extent that we knew it wasn't like she was like woohoo out there like being a hard party girl or something, you know." She just got right back on the straight and narrow. Everything worked out with her grades. And so because a lot of schools already require you to live on campus in the dorms your first year, usually starting the process of becoming an in-state resident only happens in your sophomore year. So in that sophomore year, she lived in the place that we bought ultimately for her. And she did not live in the dorms anymore. And in her junior year and in her senior year, yes, right before the beginning of her junior year, she was awarded in-state tuition, in-state residency. And it dropped, you know, from the $30,000+ a year to $10,000 a year. Ditto for her senior year of college. Now, we didn't know, frankly, if she was going to go to grad school. She was considering that. We didn't know. And now, as a matter of fact, her fiance, who was who's an engineering major, he is actually getting his master's degree in engineering there at UT as well. And so after they get married in January, they're gonna even live in that condo that we bought for her. So she's staying there. She already has a job. She got a job after graduation. So it all worked out. I mean, and
so the difference in tuition for the third and fourth year more than made up for your down payment.
Correct. And I have to tell you this too. This is a key to the math working and to the strategy. We had a mortgage on the property, right? I told you we put $21,000 down on the property. The mortgage on the property was $1,400 a month. She had two roommates. It's a 2-bedroom condo. She has two roommates. The two roommates pay $1,400 a month. So effectively, her housing is free. Now, again, before it was about 11.
But you're also building equity.
There's a third one, yes. So it totally makes sense when you add up all of the benefits. Not to mention, Austin is a hot market.
So you're getting appreciation.
Austin has been having good price appreciation. Mm-hmm. We didn't do it for that. We were trying to get her, get her in there, let her have a place, establish residency, and give her the start that we wanted to give her. But the benefits are phenomenal. First, my daughter's credit score is in the high 700s. She is on the mortgage and she is on the deed. Okay, so she's established and building a solid credit rating. Yeah, is a homeowner and has been since the age of like 19 years old. Just like my son, who we just bought a property for, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. He's 19 and we just bought him a townhouse in Raleigh, North Carolina. So she's building her credit. She's a homeowner. She has, we've given her the start that we wanted in terms of launching her on the path to property ownership and building wealth. She's building equity. And for 3+ years now, the roommates have paid the mortgage on the property. So, as we're building equity, somebody else is basically covering her housing costs. Exactly. Yeah. So she, in September last month, she actually started paying us rent. She told me in, I don't know, the spring or late spring or summer, "Mommy, I want to pay rent." And I was like, "Why do you want to? I don't want you to pay me rent. We were doing this to let you be able to save." And she goes, "Mommy, the strategy worked. I've been saving for 3 years. Right. I haven't had to pay anything, But because she graduated in December of 2018, She had interned at a educational technology company. They loved her. They offered her a job immediately, and she started working. She has a great job there. She's like, I can afford it, Mom. Look at my budget. And she went and goes through all of it, and she wanted to feel the responsibility of paying rent. And, so I was like, okay, So, but I'll tell you this, Debbie, 3+ years, not 1 month a problem. And obviously, I can't say that this is going to be, everybody's story.
Right.
But one thing I can tell you as parents, I mean, think about this. Who's going to let their kids, basically be homeless on the streets?
Right.
As long as the kid is just, staying in school and doing what they're supposed to do. Of course, most parents are the ones paying the mortgage. So when you were saying, oh, you think that you understood that most parents did it. Yes, effectively, most parents would either front the down payment, or
the parents would have paid the tuition room, the room and board to the college anyhow. So
exactly,
you're just diverting your money to something else where actually you could build.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. So
that's an amazing story. And what's amazing is, like, you never really know how things work out. I mean, you probably thought at the end of that first year, with your daughter kind of going off, with her grades not doing as well, like, that this was not moving in a good direction. And here, out of that,
you
would not have had this strategy if she had done so well the first semester.
Exactly. And so now here's the kicker. So my son, who's, like I said, 3 grades below her, right? He goes off to college. Well, first he's deciding, because again, he has, 6 or 7 colleges he's choosing from. When he is a senior in high school, he applies. And he was also a very good student. And he said he was choosing between Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, private school, about $70,000 a year, and North Carolina State University, about $45,000 roughly. And again, because we lived in New Jersey, it would be out of state there. When I looked at that, I was like, nope. I told him flat out regarding LMU, I was like, no. And he was like, why, Mom? He had visions in his head, I think initially at first, on the beach, Southern Cal, Los Angeles, celebrity life, all of these other things. And he's in the College of Design and he's an artist, truly an artist kind of at heart. And I said to him, I sat him down and I said to him, look at the math here and let's be practical. You've done great, and you're going to get a great education wherever you go, because the schools you already picked and applied to, we vetted and had a very, nicely curated list for both of my kids, right? So I said, first of all, you can't show me that this college is $25,000 a year better than this college. So that's $100,000 over, 4 years.
Yeah.
Also, if you take the architecture route in architecture or getting a master's in architecture, you can get a B-Arch, as they call it, a B-Arc. I don't know if this, that's a 5th year program.
Yeah.
Or you go to a master's program and you do 6 years. So I said, listen, Jakada, I said, this is going to be $100,000 to $150,000 minimum more. And I said, and I cannot control that tuition at all. It's a private school, so the tuition is the same for everybody, whether you're a resident of California or you're out of state, doesn't matter. I said, I cannot control that tuition at all. I said, but here in North Carolina, we can control the tuition. And both of my kids were, when Aziza was about 13, she told us, Earl and I, she said, Daddy, she calls, her stepdad Daddy. She said, Daddy, Mom, no offense, but when I go to college, I want to go far away. And Earl goes, no offense taken. We'll help you. Go away, So my son pretty much has been, he let us know too, same thing. You know what? When I'm ready to go to college, I'm going to go away. I'm going to pick an area that I want, and I'm just going to be, I'm just going to leave.
Well, you know what I love what you did, Lynette, which, I mean, of course you would, because you're a personal finance expert, but a lot of families don't, is you looked at the 4 years cost.
Absolutely.
So many people are just focused on how, like that
freshman.
Yeah, you got to look at all 4 years. It's a 4-year package, hopefully not more, but yeah.
And then, of course, tuition increases, right?
Yep.
That's why I said 100 to 150,000 minimum that it was going to be a difference of. So I told him, I said, Jakata, you have several public school options and you really, really love Raleigh. So let's hone in on NC State. And ultimately he did. I mean, he called me later. I'm so happy, Mom. I can't picture myself anywhere again. And because I rode him so much, because of the experience that happened with Aziza,
right.
I was like, how are your grades? What's going on? I was like checking in every week, every 3 days, So part of what happened too with Aziza is I'm naturally, to be honest with you, a little bit of a helicopter mom, more than a little bit. Everybody was like, okay, Lynette, it's time to stand down. This is your first, and she's got this. Aziza's good, and you have to let her be. Let her go off and do her thing, and she'll figure it out. And I was just like, okay. But then, honestly, I regret that so much. I feel like I should have had more transition to like ease her out of me, like constantly being on her. So with my son, I was like, how's it going? What's going on? Checking in, and because I rode him so much, he was on the dean's list his first semester. He was like, all right, is this 3.8 good enough for you?
But I'm just curious, when did you look into like the residency issues for, Raleigh, in North Carolina?
Immediately. Again, I know my kids and I know that he was like, when I go to college, I'm going to pick a place I want to be and I have no intention of coming back. And again, I don't know if he's going to end up getting married, but now he's met somebody just like Aziza did her sophomore year. But actually, he met in his freshman year. But that aside, girlfriend, serious girlfriend now aside, he loves Raleigh. He's like, oh my gosh, this, sending me pictures and places he gets to go. And, I think that it's just part of exploration too, honestly, that, this is part of college life, opening your eyes and your mind up and seeing the world and what's out there.
Right.
So from my standpoint, in terms of researching it, when we made the decision, when he ultimately said, yep, I'm going to pull the trigger and his, May 1 decision date and said, yep, I'm coming to North Carolina State University, I started researching then. And again, I knew that, okay, he's going to have to live on campus the first year. So this So he did. He lived on campus his first year. He did great with his grades. There's no issue about that. He actually did get scholarship money too, some scholarship money. Not like practically a full ride like Aziza got, but still he got, good scholarship money. But overall, it's still a 3 times differential in terms of the 29, almost 30,000 in tuition, plus, another 10 or 11 for room and board, etc. So in August, we bought a property for my son. So we bought a townhouse for him. And
wait, is this now his sophomore year?
Yes, this is his sophomore year. So school started in August, and right before school started, we acquired the property. He's living there now. He's gonna stay there for the rest of however many years he plans to stay there. He's not coming back to New Jersey, that's for sure, because we're not there anymore. So, and
did he have roommates too?
So he has a 2-bedroom as well, and he's literally in the process of getting a roommate right now. So this unit, we actually wanted to make some renovations and repairs for. So we painted, we put new carpet down. My husband's been out there, I don't know, three times or so, and he's gonna do a little bit of changing in the kitchen just to upgrade it a little bit more. But basically we wanted to get all that done first, but he actually literally just in September, the end of September, did just list it for rental purposes. Now with this property, because my husband and I were in a position to do it, we actually paid cash for this property. So there's no mortgage. We don't have to worry about that. It's not as if we do want the roommate to, come on and pay rent, and then that'll be
Still should, yeah.
Totally. So, and that's money that'll be going towards his college or in our retirement savings or just in savings in general. But the strategy is effectively the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the deed. He owns it. He does obviously live in the property. We don't. We live here in Texas. But a year from now, we're going to apply for him to have residency. And because I've researched exhaustively, the requirements, I feel very confident he's going to be awarded in-state tuition as well.
Got it. So it's really in your strategy, which is great. It's really the last 2 years. It's junior and senior year that you end up with getting the in-state tuition, because you need the sophomore year to kind of prove residency.
That is correct. And also, for various families, again, you have to know your child in terms of their major, their program, overall their career ambitions. Like my daughter, Alexis, for example, says, oh, I want to be a doctor. So we're thinking like college is going to be a really long term for her, right? And we're actually going to be encouraging her, now that we actually live in Texas, which has very affordable in-state, colleges, especially relative to New Jersey and the Northeast.
Yep.
We're certainly going to be encouraging her to look at in-state schools, give UT a look, give Texas A&M a look, that kind of thing, right? But we want to be open for her to go to, wherever her interests and passions and wherever she ultimately has the best fit. However, one of the things that we're strongly considering, and in all likelihood will do either in late 2019 or in 2020, is we're thinking about getting a property right now for Alexis too.
But where would you pick it?
Now, okay, so let me explain this strategy, because people are probably like, wait, what?
She's gone overboard.
Exactly, she's gone overboard. So I wanted to explain to parents of middle school students, maybe even elementary school students, but certainly high school students, if you have a 9th grader or a 10th grader even, why you might consider this, okay? So first you need to understand that if your kid in 9th grade or in 8th grade already, quote unquote, knows, I want to go to Pitt, for example, in Pittsburgh, that could change, so the strategy isn't to try to lock in a property at the school or in the state where your child is likely to go. That's really not what it's for. You could gamble. I mean, you could certainly, and it's not even really a gamble. You could just do it and say, okay, if they go there, they do. And if they don't, they don't. But like, for example, one of the things that we're thinking about is like, because we are about an hour and 20 minutes from Texas A&M in College Station, Texas, right? And housing there, student housing is relatively affordable compared to, say, again, the Northeast.
Right.
So you could get $150,000 or a $200,000 property and put a 10 or 20% or 30%, whatever you wanted and could afford, down payment. I think for student housing, you should try to put as the least down payment that you can.
Yeah.
But why would you do this when you have an 8th grader, for example, like we do? Here's why. Effectively, you're making a real estate play that's going to help with college costs over the number of years that you have until your student goes to college. So in our case, again, Alexis just started 8th grade. If we were to buy her a property now, even before the end of 2019, and we're scouting right now, we could purchase a property and get the rental income from that property and put it in her 529 plan or in a savings for 5 years. So let's say you purchased a property, you rented the property out. Again, your child is not in the property yet.
Right.
So whatever the difference is in the mortgage versus the rental income you generate, if you get, say, $500 a month in cash flow from a property, 500 times 12 is $6,000 for 1 year. That's $6,000 you can add to the 529 plan. Now times 5 is $30,000 that you've added to your college savings for your child. But guess what else? Pick a good market where prices are actually appreciating, and that $150,000 property you buy right now, 5 years from now, it might be 180, it might be 200, it could be 150, it could be 145. We don't know. Obviously, you do your due diligence.
Right.
You try to buy in a good location where you think there's.
You know what? And I'm not saying I'm a real estate guru, but at a minimum, even if it doesn't appreciate, usually the real estate around colleges always hold their value.
Just because the demand is so strong.
Yep.
This is one of the reasons why I love real estate and why I love student housing in particular, that is adjacent to large research universities in particular.
Yeah.
So many students, when you see a campus that has 30, 40, 50,000 students, I can guarantee you there's not enough housing on campus.
Right.
So, and I can guarantee you this also, and again, having two kids who are now 22 and 19, my son's about to be 20, after their freshman year and certainly after sophomore year, they are feeling themselves, okay? They're like, I'm an upperclassman, I'm independent, I want to live on my own. They don't want to live on campus anymore. So again, the demand for student housing right in those areas, and I think you should keep it to a radius, anywhere from 1 mile to maybe 5 miles near a campus where there's public transportation, where there's easy access to get to the college or university, etc. Now you're kind of stacking the odds in your favor, right? In terms of picking a good location. So my strategy would be, I buy a place. Let's say you buy a place in it could be in College Station. I could buy another townhouse in Raleigh. I could buy a place in Atlanta, Georgia, because Alexis has also gone for 2 summers, believe it or not, to University of Georgia in Athens. For the summer, she went to a program called Mini Medical School Camp. It's one of the rare programs in the country that actually have pre-college programs, a medical school type program for middle school students.
Yeah, that's pretty unusual. Yeah.
She loved it. So then I started thinking like, oh, maybe Athens, So, and you know what? If she goes there, she does. But if she doesn't, you still have the opportunity to just sell the property before your child goes up, and then take the whatever appreciation you had, or even if it was just the equity, since the renters or the tenants, even if there was no appreciation at all, the mortgage will have gone down because somebody will have been paying effectively.
Someone's building up your equity. That's basically it. Yeah. Wait, and so are you putting her on the deed also?
So this is one of the things that Mark taught me. So let's say Jakarta, my son, had chosen to go to UT Austin as well. He didn't, and that was obviously, not at all.
Right.
But he could have been added. A student can be added to a deed. So if a parent has twins, triplets, kids who are 1, 2, or 3 years apart, etc., you might be in a situation where one kid is a freshman and one is a senior or a junior, and you can literally just add the other. You don't have to buy a second property. So now you're really getting a lot of bang for your buck. I've totally heard of families doing this where brothers all wanted to go to the same school.
Wow.
Yeah, and they just had one property.
One property for like multiple kids. Wow. And
now again, so and again, even if the parent is paying, that housing cost, if you have say a 3-bedroom, that housing cost for all 3 of them is a third of the cost effectively of you. Then you're paying 3 different, bills for, room and board on campus.
Yeah. Amazing. Are you going to get your real estate license soon?
No, because I like to look at homes and I totally love to invest and make money off of them. But I just like my time so much. I just like my freedom and, so. But I'm the person who goes and I like going to open houses and I ooh and ah and look at, and all that. So I do love real estate.
Wow. This is great. This was fabulous information, Lynette. Thank you so much. We will talk a little bit longer, but if anybody has any questions, just put them in the chat. I did see somebody kind of halfway through the conversation, Angela just said, wow. I think kind of absorbing all this, it was like, it's great. It's really, you stumbled into it, but now you know it. Now you really have figured it out. It's very.
I'm going to give your audience one last tip for any state that you're thinking about. So they'll look at your intent. They'll look at, again, the residency or the domicile factor in terms of the student having to live there for X amount of time. Often it's 1 year. Some places, though, believe it or not, are more flexible and lenient and say you don't have to do it for 6 months. Others are stricter and say it has to be 2 years. I mean, so it's all over the place.
Where does somebody look for this information? Is it on the college website? Is it on a state website?
So yes, on any college's website, you should be able to find it. Literally Google the phrase in-state residency. And again, this is only, guys, for public schools.
Right.
For private schools, this strategy is not necessary. It doesn't work because they're going to charge the same tuition,
right?
For everybody. So this is for public schools. But yes, all public colleges will define and they will dictate and lay out for you what is the criteria and the conditions under which someone is afforded in-state residency. And that's what you need to look at with a fine-tooth comb for your particular college, right, and for that particular state. I
have to say, I really love this because without this, I usually recommend people don't look at out-of-state, to be the out-of-state student at a state school because of just the differential. But this really just like blows it away. And as you said, you can only do this at a public school. You can't control the costs at a private school. Correct.
I mean, I'm sold on it as a strategy, and I'm so super glad. I'm not glad that Aziza had a bad semester, but I am glad ultimately that we kind of stumbled because it accelerated our plan. So again, each part kind of improved. So like with her, it was this with a mortgage. Now it's like, okay, we don't even have a mortgage, but we'll just add to the coffers. And then for Alexis, we're getting like a head start.
Yeah.
So well, now my first kid, which I'm not, and I'm not. I'd be like, okay, my child was born. Let me go buy
that strategy, and now you've kind of like even morphed it in a better way. You don't have to even have to wait until your kid's in college to really take advantage of the idea.
The idea is get the rental income, just keep saving it, and then putting that aside for college costs. And who knows? Again, obviously, there's no guaranteed real estate. But if you have price appreciation, how much is that going to be? 20,000, 30, 50,000? Some markets in the country are doing phenomenally well. And, 5% appreciation per year is not uncommon. So you kind of just do the math and think, do I have a 12-year-old? Do I have a 16-year-old? How many people do I own the property? And what is the potential appreciation? And what is the potential income that I could get during that time as well?
And it's sticking close to a university, that because they're going to always have that rental demand.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. So I'm so super happy to share this with your audience though. And,
I think this is like a secret, but yeah, you've uncovered.
The secrets of in-state tuition.
Wow. Lynette, this is fabulous. We're we've gone for an hour.
Wow, I was like, yeah.
I just tell us quickly about your college secrets, right?
Yes. So I have a book series called College Secrets. The flagship book is called College Secrets: How to Save Money, Cut College Costs, and Graduate Debt-Free. That book is for 12th graders, college students, and their parents. Then the companion book in that series is called College Secrets for Teens, Money Saving Ideas for the Pre-College Years. And that book is for 7th graders through 12th graders and their parents. And in a nutshell, the College Secrets series tries to tell families how to get prepared for college by looking at it in 3 sets of costs. Pre-college costs, then the upfront costs like tuition fees, room and board, and then the hidden, or what I call the back end college costs that everybody's going to face. And so essentially the book series says, here, I want to show you how you can pay zero. Everything that I list in the book, I try to tell people a strategy to pay zero or to drastically reduce that given expense. So yeah, And of course, I did the book series first when my own kids were going off to college, and I started seeing like all these, gotcha fees and all these hidden stuff that I was like, how come nobody told me about this before? So
one quick question that Angela has, then just curious. She just said, I'm a little scared of maintenance on a property. Have you had any problems with that?
Great question. Very minor maintenance. So as a matter of fact, this month, my daughter got she's actually on her condo, the condo association board. And so long story short, they had some folks come in and look at like the lines and the gas lines and just different things at different units in her condo. And for bottom line is like, now it's a new oven that needs to be put in there. So like my husband just literally paid for her to get an oven. He told her, don't worry, I'll cover that cost. And so he did that. But in general, it's been very minor. And she's had all female, of course, roommates in the 3+ years that she's been there. I would say literally no more than $300, if that, in any given year.
Wow.
So it really hasn't been anything major, not at all. So with my son's property, because we bought a house that it's a townhouse that was a little dated and we knew it needed some work. We planned and we said, okay, we got to put some work and some money into this. And so there were maintenance issues and just aesthetics, like the carpet was horrible, the paint job needed to be, got taken care of, that kind of thing. But in general, again, I think that's part of the buying process.
Right.
So you really want to buy a place that, you don't want to feel like you have a total rehab or a fixer upper that's just, gonna set you back a lot more.
Right. Okay. Annie has a question.
Yes.
If the child lives on campus during the school year and in the property during the summers, could that work?
Typically, no.
Right.
So typically you have to establish, and again, check for your school and I don't know what state you're in, et cetera. But the schools will be very specific in telling you how they define residency. And sometimes they'll say it has to be contiguous, like or continual.
Right.
And so there can't be those kind of interruptions or breaks. And some will say, like, if you're leaving for the summertime and going back, they consider that, well, clearly you're not establishing residency because you're going back to the old state or wherever you were, before. So you have to drill down and know the exact guidelines that are dictated by the school that your child is going to attend. But I can say in general, when they say like a 1-year residency, they mean we want you to live in that property for 1 year. And no, we don't want you going 3 months or 2 months or something, at a different place.
Okay. Oh, another question from Fang. Have you considered single family houses instead of condos, since condos or townhouses require condo fees?
Great question. And both of our properties have condo fees or HOA type fees. So the townhouse has it in Raleigh and the condo that Aziza has in Austin. And yes, we have considered that. The problem, or the challenge, I should say, with that is for students actually kind of feel better in a condo or in like an apartment type
around them.
Yeah, with other students around them, kind of the infrastructure and the supports and just the social kind of activity, and just it's more of a communal feel for them as opposed to, oh my God, I'm a homeowner. They don't want to feel like I'm 30,
Right.
So I think that also in terms of proximity and pricing and access and everything else, usually student housing and what's closer, it's not that you can't find single family homes adjacent to a college, you absolutely can. But just in terms of what's going to appeal to a student, especially if you want to have other students in there as renters,
right,
they actually prefer, and the market there is mostly for like apartments, condos, townhouses, that kind of thing. But yes, you're absolutely right. And we factor in the HOA,
right, you have to,
and condo association fees as well.
Yep. Okay, well, great question. Yeah. Well, it was fabulous talking to you. Thank you, Lynette, for just sharing your story. I mean, not just the strategy, but also your personal story. That's really, I appreciate, just people, we know like the backstory, and I think it kind of all makes sense now. And amazing. Congratulations to your daughter and your future son-in-law, to your son and his girlfriend, to your young daughter, to your husband,
to our 2 dogs.
It was great having you on. I know we actually have a ton of other college stuff, so maybe we'll find another time you can come back.
Anytime you want me to come back, I'll come back on and we'll talk. We'll go through more stuff than just this, one long saga. That I just wanted to get it out there and just kind of explain. Plus, I like to tell people, like I said, the good and the bad, and to really understand like the process and how and why. Because I do think, like, what is a parent going to do if their kid loses a scholarship? And this is like an option for that family, What is the parent going to do if they're thinking like, this is unaffordable overall, but maybe it won't be if I look at it as 4 years and I know sophomore or junior year and senior year, it'll be much more affordable, or my kid might do a 5th year because of their program or graduate school, etc. So it changes the dynamics a little bit financially when you're making these decisions.
Right. No, you've given people some options.
Yeah, good. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.